Sue, I cannot thank you enough for agreeing to do this. Everybody's looking very forward to hearing what you have to say, and we love having this wellness component to our webinars. I'm going to do a brief introduction. You may have all seen her bio, but Sue Brown, with a ton of credentials next to her name, is a master's prepared nurse and national board certified health and wellness coach who supports women in midlife and beyond in improving health, energy, and quality of life. Drawing on her clinical background and decades of personal and professional experience, she brings a practical, compassionate approach to well-being that emphasizes real food, sustainable habits, stress management, movement, and self-care. And who doesn't need all of the above? So with that, let me turn it over to Sue. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Rhonda. And I so appreciate being with you all today. We will have time to talk in between. I'm going to use the chat. I'm going to get started. So here's the agenda. Welcome. So glad you're here. Again, I'm Sue. I'm a coach. I'm a nurse. And this is, quite frankly, some of my favorite stuff to talk about. And you'll find that as I go along. If you don't have them, if you could grab a notepad, something to write on and something to write with, because I'm going to be asking you some questions, and at times it may be helpful to jot down a note. I'm going to be talking about foundations of well-being from kind of a different perspective than you may have seen it before, based on things that, again, being women, many of us at a certain point of life kind of resonate. And I'm hoping they resonate with you. I'm going to ask some questions, have some kind of poll-like things. And I want you to realize the questions are harder than they seem. So just take a guess and assume it might not be what you think, okay? No judgment, ever. Content that might be helpful for you. And then I'm going to be asking you some questions about things like what is working and what isn't. So where are you being depleted in ways that you might be able to make a subtle shift and find yourself with a bit more energy? At the end, and this is where Rhonda was referring to discussion, I'd like to talk about some takeaways. So what have you learned? What impact might it have on what you do day to day? So I'm going to continue. If you have any questions, please feel free, put them in the chat, because I like this to be, somewhat interactive as we go along. So what we've got here are the pieces I put together for well-being, from the perspective of things we should kind of be aware of that help us be kind of our best selves, right? So on the top, I've got nourishment there. Think food, followed by physical movement, restorative sleep, stress and recovery, connections and family, mindset, and aging attitudes, supportive environment. And when you think of that, don't even just think about what's around you in your home and where you live. Think about things like clutter, right? Mental clarity and purpose. What are you doing? What's engaging you? So some of these things are more straightforward, others might not be. I'm going to give you an example under the mindset and aging attitudes. As I aged, one of the things that interested me was about longevity. And as it turns out, our attitudes about longevity do, in fact, influence how long we live. So connections and family, particularly connections, also really critical. How do we recover from stress? How do we take care of ourselves? So I'll be touching on some of these things, but for today, focus is on nourishment and food. And I'm going to ask you this question again. If this was helpful, I'm happy over time to talk about all of these things. So as I mentioned, from where I'm sitting, food is first. And I'm going to explain why. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, So I've been a nurse a long time, and my weight had been all over the place, up and down. I had at over the years developed a number of different metabolic conditions associated with it. And I was pretty exhausted a lot of the time. And you can see here at 19, I'm actually 59. And I'm starting to think a lot about retirement and what is going to happen next. My health wasn't great and I was exhausted. And I had tried every diet under the sun, right? So I had tried everything I could think of. And while it may have worked for a while, sooner or later, it didn't. And I was all over the place. So that's my reality. So there was a lot of things I could do well, but I couldn't manage my weight to save my life. And I'm going to tell you a lot about what happened for me next, because I found things over a period of time that really started to change my life. And so you can see me there in 21. And by the way, in 19, it wasn't that I wasn't traveling. That was one of my goals. I was actually in Hawaii and I was traveling again in 21. But you can see something happened in between. And then in 24, my kid got married. My husband and I have one child. And last year I retired so I could do this. So what else happened in 21? I went back to school to become a coach. I became board certified in 23 and got my professional coach certification last year. Because what I found was, even though, and this is true for so many of us, we take what we've learned over so many years and suddenly we can apply it in a very different way. And that's what I do. And I hope this is helpful for you. Don't know if you've heard this story before. Why I start with food is because this was a real issue for me. You know, people were designed for feast and famine, right? When did you eat? Oh, at harvest when there was food everywhere. And then there was the winter. We have no winter. There's an HEB down the block, right? Or a couple miles away, or however far it is. There is never a famine. And not only that, there's now foods that aren't really food that's just made the situation worse. And I was really caught in this, and I'm going to explain why. But first, and I'm hoping you can see the top of this, and the screen is not blocking it. What it says here, and if you don't mind putting an A, B, or C, or D in the chat, what percent of foods are ultra processed? Ultra processed meaning they're engineered in a factory. Any idea? I'm going to tell you more about that and what that means shortly too. More detail. Okay. Oh, we've got a really smart group here. Correct. About 70% are ultra processed. They make up about 60% of calories in the US diet. It's a lot. And it really makes a difference. So what happened with ultra processed food? How did we end up with ultra processed food? I don't know if you've heard this part of the story, but they started during World War II, and there was a whole lot of people to feed under very difficult conditions, and they needed foods that were portable, long shelf life, and they were actually engineered from surplus products. And so they actually created food from non-food or food-like substances. And after the war, there was this new technology, a lot of extra ingredients, and it moved into civilian life. Who remembers TV dinners? I had one on Saturday night. It was a big deal. My parents went out for dinner. I got a TV dinner. I like the one with a little brownie, you know. So anyway, it was marketed as best thing ever. It says healthy on the package. As consumers, what do we know? We don't. Because what happened is that something that was developed in an emergency became what we did. And they also made it what's called hyperpalatable. And hyperpalatable means it's easy to not eat just one. It's designed that way on purpose. So these substances, which, I'm going to call them overall ultra processed food, right? They are linked to lots of different health problems, and not just physical health, but also anxiety and depression. We don't know what they do exactly to the gut microbiome. We know it's a problem though. They impact your appetite. So for years, I didn't know if I was hungry or if I was full. I completely lost that information. I remember once, this is many years ago, it was Sunday afternoon. We'd gone out for brunch. It was late in the afternoon. And I was like, what's going on with my stomach? And it finally dawned on me I was hungry. It just didn't happen. And the food itself keeps you eating. So I'm going to give you an example of what happens. It's hyperpalatable. What that means is it's designed so that people's brains literally light up. They put people in an fMRI machine. So think an MRI, it's a functional MRI. It's got colors and whatnot attached. And they put the food right on the tip of their tongue. So let's say it's a little piece of chocolate. And then when they swallowed it and had it on their tongue, they'd see how their brain lit up. And the more it lit up, the more they're like, whoa, this is what we're going to sell. Because if you think about it, if you're selling something that makes people want more, financially, it's a win for your organization and your company, but not for the consumer. And it was first well later that this information is coming out. So when you think of the difference, real food, right? Plants, animals, you know what the ingredients are, and it feels grounding. As opposed to ultra processed food, these you wouldn't use at home. And it's a little activating. It's like more. And it's things that don't occur in nature. So some of it might have, because it's about what's been done to them. So think about triggers, sweet triggers. I think things with sugar in them, right? It's not the sugar cane or the beets or the whatever corn that the sugar came from. It's been what's been done to it. Same with crunchy and salty things. Some people are more sweet people. Some people are more salty people. The salty folks, think chips, right? It's got some type of flour product in it that turns, by the way, into sugar in your mouth. And then add salt, add fat, and suddenly it's like, whoa, combination hits, right? And even those quote unquote healthy things, right? They're manufactured in a lot of cases. So really important to look at labels to figure out what on earth you're eating, because it's those types of things where you might not even realize it. And suddenly it's like, I need more. And for some of us, and this includes me, it took me a long time even to be able to deal with fruit without thinking to myself, I need more, because I was so easily triggered. So I mentioned some of this already, that ultra processed foods disrupt being hungry and full, but they also increase your blood sugar volatility, drive cravings, and drive inflammation. So what percent of people are sensitive to ultra processed food? In the chat, please. What do you think? What's your guess? Okay, thank you. We got a lot of D's there. And I'm going to show you about what happens, and there's a little bit on perspective. Overweight women over 50, 30%. Okay, this was a relatively recent study. Overall, all people, only 14%. But those of us, and by the way, that doesn't even relate to a lot of people who are normal weight are sensitive. And there's people who are overweight who are not sensitive. It's not a one-to-one correlation, but you can see, and again, I was one of these people where, the food's in the other room and it's calling my name. So this is a questionnaire. I want to take, do it on your fingers, write it on your pad. And if you're comfortable sharing it in the chat, what your total is, count up how many of these apply to you. I'm going to give you a moment to read them through, but I can read them aloud as well. So, do you eat certain foods even when you told yourself you wouldn't or when you're not hungry? Give yourself a 1 if it's a yes. Do these foods make you feel better or give you pleasure, even though you know they might be harming your health? Again, give yourself a 1. Do you often eat more of these foods than you intended to? It's a 1. Have you found you need to eat more of these foods over time to get the same amount of enjoyment or comfort? 1 for that, if that applies to you. Have you tried to cut down or stop eating these foods, but found it difficult or impossible? Give yourself a 1 if it applies. And do you often feel distressed, guilty, or upset about how much or how often you eat these foods? Well, those are the 6. And if you've got 3 or more, you may be in the group of people who are sensitive to ultra-processed food. So I have historically met criteria for all 6. And that's where I come from. So let me tell you a little bit more about what happens here. And then I'll tell you a little bit about what I did. So, got another question first. What would happen if you ate only ultra-processed foods? Would you A, eat the same amount of calories? B, eat less? C, eat 100 calories more? Or D, eat 500 calories more? Guesses? Yep. We got a number of letters coming in as D's. You guys are smart. 500 calorie a day difference and associated weight gain, but people don't have an increase in hunger and they don't know they're eating more. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. So you don't even know that there's any difference, but something is happening there. So eating more real, minimally processed foods helps with stabilizing energy, reducing cravings, and supports your metabolic health. So all of the above. And that's really kind of the punchline here, is focus on minimally processed food. Minimally processed things, yeah, it's, let's say it's a piece of chicken, it's a whole food, but it's minimally processed if you're eating cottage cheese or yogurt, right? Greek yogurt, right? Plain Greek yogurt, it doesn't have the sugar at the bottom. It helps stabilize your energy. And actually, and I'll share this, I don't have a problem sharing this. For me, I was so sensitive to these foods, and there is a continuum, but I was so sensitive that I don't eat sugar or flour anymore. And that was one of the main pieces that helped me personally lose 120 pounds, keep them off, and stay on this path for the rest of my life. Because what happens is I don't diet anymore. It's how I live, right? And I'd been the yo-yo dieter. You don't know me well. I decided not to share it today. I have pictures where I am all over the board. I had 10 sizes. Um, because what happened is either I was on a diet and quote unquote being good, or I was all over the place. And God knows what I was eating. And if it wasn't right and it wasn't enough, I was having more. Eliminating the foods that I was sensitive to was really the first step in changing my life. And I find with working with other people who are sensitive, again, it's a continuum. Some people, let's say it helps just to get rid of one thing, or maybe get rid of, what are the couple of things that are really a problem for you? And that's enough. And it's always individualized. But the universal for everybody is more minimally processed foods, which will help and not only stabilize your energy, it'll also help stabilize your appetite. So noticing without judging or fixing. And this is the beginning of our conversation. So folks who have a pen or a pad, what foods leave you feeling steady, nourished, or satisfied? Take a couple of notes here. What leaves you feeling less supportive or more reactive? Reactive meaning, oh, I want more. Reactive meaning, I'm still hungry. Reactive meaning, okay, where's the food? And on most days, does the way you eat support your health? So just take a moment. Fabulous. All right, I'm going to stop sharing so we can chat.
There you go.
Wonderful. So anybody want to share? Oh, and I can keep the questions up. So I'll share again so you can see. So what foods are making you feel steady, nourished, or satisfied? Anyone? What works for you? What do you feel full after?
Yeah, I'm like really hearty greens raw.
Mhm.
I eat a lot of salads with the baby kale and spinach and chard and all that.
So salads and greens, great choices. Okay.
Fresh
Anyone else?
vegetables.
I would say meats. Like if I have
Mm.
a turkey sandwich, if it's, got a substantial turkey, I can only eat half of that because it fills me up so and makes me feel satisfied.
Yeah, no, it's steady, nourished, or satisfied. Any of the above. Let's go to the second one. What are you that isn't working for you?
Salty snacks.
It sounds like you are not alone.
Fast food,
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah, design.
like hamburgers and potato chips and those things.
Anybody here have a sweet tooth?
Yes,
Yeah, so I'm not alone.
I've had to completely change everything that I eat because my physician put me on Manjaro.
Mhm.
And so my cravings for carbohydrates went sky high, but I can't eat them and I can't, protein is the only thing that literally satisfies me now.
How are you feeling?
Terrific. I've lost 90 pounds. I feel really good.
Fabulous. That
Amazing.
is fabulous. I got to tell you, they're wonderful tools. There's a lot of tools out there. It's a wonderful tool.
how about like protein bars? Because aren't they kind of ultra processed, even though they're full of protein? Or maybe not full of protein, but
Yeah, take a look at the ingredients. If you find things, for example, it ends in OSE, so it's a sugar product. It's things you can't pronounce. You don't know what it is. It's probably got a bunch of additives in it.
mhm.
What is it in order to keep it shelf stable? Maybe a problem. In other words, where is it produced? Does it come in a package? Does it stay for a long time? It doesn't have crazy things in it. I mean,
These days, everything is, I'm sorry, everything is protein added, 20 grams of protein.
Yeah.
And everybody's supposed to eat that much, but it's what it's in that can be a real problem.
Absolutely. In fact, it's marketed that way on purpose.
Mhm.
It's like things that years ago they used to say new or extra vitamins or, whatever. It's just
Mhm.
what they're saying today because so many people are looking for extra protein. But I've heard really clearly early on protein, eggs, meat, whatever. It's the things that really are going to help you feel satisfied. And yeah, sometimes it's less convenient, but there's times where, quite frankly, I pack my food. Or if I'm gonna give you another example. Let's say I'm taking a plane flight. I'm a little sensitive to nuts. But if I'm taking a plane flight and I know what I'm eating and I have a certain amount and I take it with me, it works, right? Protein, fat, it'll keep me. But if I'm just doing a protein bar because it's convenient, I'll grab a piece of chicken instead. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Keep some of that stuff in mind on how it's marketed, and it's also pretty expensive, certainly much more expensive than real food is, where some things that are ultra processed are really inexpensive. I mean, think about a bag of chips, you grab it, it's easy, it's cheap, as opposed to, I'm gonna make myself a potato. Or how are you gonna feel compared to eating a bag of chips versus eating a whole potato? Question 3, most days, does the way you eat support your health?
I try.
Well, I have a question that it's more of a collagen, taking extra collagen. I know I heard a nutritionist gave a talk at something, and she said, well, she's taking it. A dietitian, that's what she was, not a nutritionist.
Um,
Do you have any feeling about that?
I don't. That's a question I would honestly suggest asking your doctor.
My doctor turfed it over to the dietitian who has answered me. Yeah.
Yeah. If you'd like to do some research and get back to you.
Oh, yeah, I kind of researched it a little. I just, as everybody here knows, I have a kidney transplant, so I kind of want to be careful of some of the things that I eat. But the things it's supposed to take care of are everything that I have, and some of it caused by the drugs that I'm on.
Uh,
So that's kind of where my question comes from.
yeah, which really isn't a question that I'm going to be able to answer because of that. Which honestly, I know there's a lot of people, they take different supplements. A lot of that, I think, is somewhat trial and error. What works for you
Hmm.
best? I'm going to give you an example. I take calcium and vitamin D. Any guesses why, right? Of course, a lot of us, right? So I think it's different circumstances for different people. On the
Hmm.
other hand, there are some things we don't need. Now, you heard earlier, not eating sugar is hard. It is until it's not. I haven't had sugar and flour in 6 years. You don't need them to live. Um, and that's how, in some ways, I maintain my weight, right? Because yeah, for folks who need medication, medication works. There's a lot of different things that work, but you don't have to, right? It's what works for that person. And some people are on medications for, let's say, weight, or diabetes, but they also want to make improvements to how they're eating as well. Right. So it's either and or whatever, because all of it, just like supplements, you got to really individualize what works best for you
Hmm.
and take into account things like you've got special circumstances, you know. Um, and so perhaps don't metabolize, let's say, certain medication a certain way, or you've got a condition that's impacted. Um, and I think my question regarding most of the time, are you eating the way to support your health, is really about how are you taking care of you, right? Regardless of what that is. Are you taking good care of you? Or are there some things you might want to do to take better care of you? Any thoughts on that? Anything you might want to do differently?
Get more sleep.
Oh, I'm gonna let that sit with you. I'm gonna continue here. With any type of change, folks just think to themselves, I may need to grow up, but if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not doing this. I should be able to moderate. And in this case with food, I'm the problem, but you're not, right? It's all the things that keep people stuck. And often there's a story behind that. So that's one thing I talk with people about is, it's not necessarily willpower. Part of it's environment, right? So you in a situation where there's a lot of stuff around and you're starving, right? I'm over hungry, so I'm eating everything in sight, right? What can you do differently from that perspective? It's not perfect. Okay, so I had this, so what? I'm gonna go back and eat what I usually eat. Oh, good. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's not like, I've done this for this period of time and oops, what the hell, doesn't matter from here. Should, yeah, should doesn't work.
Ooh,
And the key is, and you'll find this in all of what I talk about, is how do you best take care of you? Take care of yourself. Think about the idea, if you don't put your oxygen mask on, you're not helping anybody, right? So how do you best take care of you? So,
I can honestly tell you that when my mother was still alive, every time I'd go to her house, I'd come up to the front door and I'd be hungry. So that tells you a lot about my mother and how she passed food on to us.
yes,
That was her love.
yeah, that was her love language. Okay.
Was kind of our age group as well, though, I think.
Yeah.
We ate a whole roast for dinner, the four people, two adults and two kids up to teenagers. So people don't do that now. Or maybe some of them do. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, I think people do a lot more snacking now. Might be my guess. Or a lot more, you don't like sit down for dinner
Oh, no.
based on who it is.
Yeah.
So they're actually potentially eating more stuff. Oh, I just had a little something, but God knows what was in it. Does anybody remember having a snack before bed? Or having a
As a
snack?
kid?
Yeah,
Oh, no,
no, okay.
I don't.
Okay, let me tell you a little bit about me. For fun, I want to see if any of this resonates with anybody. I'd have like breakfast and lunch, like on a school day, like a normal kid. Who had a snack after school?
I did.
Yeah, I did.
Me too. Me too. And then, I had dinner, and who had dessert with dinner?
Always.
Got it. Yes, me too.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna go on from there. I remember watching TV with my dad, and we'd have pretzels or something salty, because that was his preferred. Anybody remember having snacks in the evening?
Yes.
Yeah.
My mother had her windmill cookies and a
Remember
cup
those?
of tea.
Yeah.
My mother was fond of Little Debbie's. What does that say? Okay.
10 o'clock was milk and cookies time every night for my father.
Yep, yep, yep. Who remembers chocolate milk?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
My
okay.
grandkids' other grandmother makes them chocolate milk.
Mhm. Yeah, still out there. Before I went to bed, my parents and my mother really believed I would sleep better if I had a snack before bed. So I always had a snack before bed. She'd give me like oats or snowballs. I didn't like the snowballs. She liked the snowballs. Let's call it what it is. Okay. Does anybody remember like when I went to New York, my family both my parents are from Brooklyn, and I'd visit my grandmother. She had like Yankee Doodles and stuff like that. Does that ring a bell? Does anybody?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. husband's from Philadelphia area. He ate tasty cakes. Okay. It's different variation on it. He had me try them. I'm like, they're not so good. But I remember some of the stuff years later. I'm like, what the hell? Right. So we grew up with these things. They became part of how we lived, right? And like going into your mother's house, it's what serves us now.
Exactly.
It may not be what served us then, and what helped us feel comforted then may no longer serve us at our current age. And there's stuff behind that too. It's what's under that iceberg, right? And how do you get those good feelings without necessarily making it part of the food? So, I'm gonna ask again. Anybody hear anything today from, or think about anything today that you might want to do to help support you?
Oh, okay. I find it so hard to not have any flour. I don't eat a lot of bread or cookies or cereal, but every once in a while you want a hamburger bun, you know?
Is that okay? For you, that might be fine. This is a kind of a personal thing. It's the whole concept behind this is how do you support well-being and the best you? So you can do what you really is your body supporting you to do what you want it to do, given where you are health-wise, age-wise, all that other. Maybe something you want to do is look at labels more carefully.
Huh.
Or think about what choice you might have a little bit differently when you go to the grocery store, so you have something available. Does anybody cook food for a couple of days in advance?
I don't
You
cook.
say what?
I pretty much stopped cooking.
Okay, that works too. But what I'm talking about is I generally cook a few days in advance, certain things so that I don't have to worry about it and I can make good choices. So I've made the right thing to do the easy thing and the easy thing the right thing. It helps me take better care of me. And I'm careful not to get over hungry. Does anybody know
Yeah,
what I mean by over hungry? And I'm ready to you
eat whatever.
got it.
Hmm.
You got it.
For a
So
long time, I didn't know when I was hungry. I really didn't know what that hunger feeling was, like you said earlier. And now there are times when I know I'm hungry and I'll go and have a piece of fruit or um, uh, something that is like cottage cheese. Just something that I know is protein that's going to make me feel better.
yeah. And
I
does it
don't
help?
want to be hangry anymore.
Yes. Yeah, you don't ever want to be hangry again.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, and that's why when I talk about well-being, it's a lot of this is about how do you take care of you, right? And I think food is really foundational, and especially because we use food for so many things. Anyone else? So any takeaways? Anything you
Re-
learned or resonated with you?
A lot of it is stuff that I already knew, but you kind of put it in the back of your brain. So it just pulled it forward.
Is it helpful from hearing from a different perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like you. I was constantly dieting, but I don't think I did I didn't try a whole lot of the, um, what do I want to say? The diet du jour. It was mainly Weight Watchers, which really isn't that bad.
I think it's so important too to frame all of this in terms of how you feel. It's not necessarily about weight and all that stuff.
Right.
Well,
It's all about how you feel and understanding the big food environment that the industrialized food environment we live in and how to break through so much of the hype and what do we need, and you get contradictory evidence. But I think so much of the messaging that you provide and that we see a little bit more of these days is eat real food.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really
Of
helpful.
course, you're talking to a bunch of pretty intelligent women right now. So, I mean, I assume we're all women.
yeah,
So I think it's stuff we all really knew, but again, like you said, it's sometimes it's hard.
it is.
What I'm curious about is, you've got your wheel and how all the things fit together. Because it's not just one thing. You don't fix just one thing. You have to
Yeah.
fix the whole system.
Yeah, and everything relates to each other. So
Mhm.
a lot of stuff is not new. Um, but it's how do you put it all together when not only does everything impact each other, but it all impacts how you feel and how you live day to day and what you're able to do.
Oh, that was fast.
And how do you really kind of from that purpose perspective, what's most important to you to do? So are you, and that's why it's nourishment instead of food, and it's definitely not about weight. It's how do you take the best care of you? So in other words,
Yeah.
somebody said earlier about having a hamburger bun. That's fine. If that works for you, yay. That's not what it's about. It's how do you take the best care of you? It's not eating one way or another way. It's saying, how do you take and given we live in a crazy time, in a crazy way, and you go into the local Walmart and it's like, what the heck? Where's the food? Right?
Yeah. What do you think about the change in the food pyramid?
Excuse me.
I got to tell you, there are so many things that are so bizarre. Okay.
You're talking to a couple of nurses also.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
yeah, I mean, do I think it's going in the right direction? It's better than it was, honest to God. I don't know. Other nurses, what do you think?
I mean, to have meat all the way at the top and then have your fruit way down, fruits and vegetables.
I know.
Because I think that because that's the way you're going to feed your kids.
Yeah.
So if your kids get to the point that that's all they want,
They're gonna
and they're
have
going
it
to end up
out.
getting fast food because that's where you find the cheap, easy protein, you know?
Problem.
I don't know. It is. It's
Yeah, it is. And it's
and putting,
also
yeah,
interpreted too.
right. And beef tallow. I'm like, really?
Ooh.
Ugh.
It's crazy. I mean, beef tallow is kind of like chicken.
Yeah, chicken schmaltz.
But would you
But
eat schmaltz? I think so. You just
but
skim it
I thought
off.
I think the tallow came from, and I don't know. Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
it
good.
probably is the same. And it adds flavor probably, but it depends on how much you use, you know.
Yeah, there was a lot of problems before. Um,
Hmm.
there's still problems, obviously, and a lot of them.
Mhm.
So, and I think, again, with talking to folks who are all very knowledgeable, you're gonna know what looks crazy.
You know, crazy when you see
True.
Yeah, I
it.
read the paper every day. I see
Yeah,
crazy.
absolutely. Absolutely, because there's so much out there that's kind of nuts. It's
Yeah,
nuts. And so much is really related to, again, taking care of yourself in the best way you can and your family, right? What's going to work?
right. Yeah,
Yeah. And taking a look at some of this stuff, and it's like, no. Um, and also, to some extent, learning with what you live. And I'm going to give you an example. As you heard earlier, I learned how to eat for every occasion. I don't know if you did, but I sure did. That was how I grew up. And I made it a point with our kid so that he'd only eat when he was hungry. And he still does that. So there's something to, you know, how do we make whatever small shifts or do something that might influence somebody else that might help
hmm
from a health perspective? Right. So God willing, one day I will have grandchildren in the next few years. When they're over at my house, there's certain things they're probably not going to get because they don't live in my house.
Yeah. It. Oh, yeah. I had, I had two children, and each of them are so different. I'm ready to go to the one where it's going to be fast food and chips.
So
It was very.
what do you do
Hmm.
when you're there?
I don't eat a lot. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. You know, if I'm really hungry, I'll have a whatever. I try and cook when I'm there. And but his kids are so picky, and part of that is because they weren't given the same things that my daughter's kids got. They're they have a really wide palate. But I see them all the time. It's the ones in Ohio, you know, I don't know. It's just different.
Right. And everybody's different about how they, because there's food is just such a different type of thing and it hits us all in
Right.
so many
Right.
different ways. So anyway,
Great.
um, I'm going to be wrapping up. What I did want to share, the work I do is around the real food lifestyle. Number of different pieces. We talked a little bit about your story. Sometimes I work with people on rewriting their story and what might have been true at one point might not be true anymore. Finding ways that are consistent for you to live your best life. And
Mhm.
what else I wanted to share was I have, and I'm just going to move forward a bit here. Thought I had it here, but I don't, so I'm going to stop sharing. A form on a few pages on mindset that I wanted to share. Rhonda's going to send it out for me when I send it to her. That just talks about what are some of the things that you might be able to do to kind of think a little bit differently about what's most important to you. So I hope this was helpful. If you would like to
Mhm.
hear more about any of these other topics, please let Rhonda know or let me know. And if you'd like to learn more about what I do, I always offer complimentary sessions. You'll see information on the handout I'm going to share. So any questions, comments, anything I didn't cover today? If there's anything, questions anybody has, always feel free to reach out. And I hope this was helpful.
Yeah. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.